Bienvenido aquí. Bienvenido aquí. No quiero que vayas tú. No quiero que vengas hoy. Bienvenido aquí a este lugar de amor. De sueños de ilusión. A este lugar de amor. Bienvenido aquí. Si es un lugar de amor. De sueños de ilusión. A este lugar de amor. Bienvenido aquí.
Good morning. Welcome to this shared worship experience for the 5 Unitarian Universalist congregations in San Diego County, what we call the San Diego UU Cluster of Congregations. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, you are welcome at our congregations. Whether you gather with Unitarian Universalists every Sunday, once or twice a year, or are here with us this morning for the first time, we are glad you are here. I'm Reverend Sharon Wiley, the minister at Chalice UU Congregation in Escondido. I'm joined this morning by 5 of my colleagues, Reverend Kathleen Owens and Reverend Tanya Marquez from First UU Church of San Diego, Reverend Beth Johnson from Palomar UU Fellowship in Vista, Reverend Joe Green from the UU Fellowship of San Diego in Solana Beach, and Reverend Everett Howe from Summit UU Fellowship in Santee. We are also grateful to Jessica Clay from First Church for leading our land acknowledgement. This is our first time offering a shared worship for our 5 congregations, so welcome to this special morning, and please know that each congregation will resume its regular worship practices next week. I want to especially welcome those of you who are newcomers this morning. In addition to online worship, I want you to know that at all of our congregations, groups and activities continue to happen online as well. Activities like support groups, anti-racism work, religious education for children, all these and more are happening online. You do not have to be a member to participate in groups and activities. They are open to everyone. You can find out more on our congregational websites. Again, good morning and welcome.
Halito Chima Chukama, Cho Chifo at Jennifer Clay, Chatasaya, Oklahoma. Good morning, my name is Jennifer Clay. I'm from the Choctaw Nation of Oklahoma. I'm also a member of the First Unitarian Universalist in San Diego. As a community engaging in peace and living our values of justice and equity in relationships, and while we move forward in living the 8th principle of actions that dismantle racism and oppressions within ourselves and our institutions, we recognize that as settlers and allies on unceded land, the intent we have of doing a land acknowledgement is to give respect to the Kumeyaay people, raising awareness of the many issues that continue to affect the original people. There are 18 Kumeyaay bands in San Diego. They represent a concentration in this county that is larger than any other county in the United States. Do we know them? The purpose of a land acknowledgement is to show respect, yes. To raise awareness of their history and their beautiful culture, yes. But it's also an opportunity for us to be intentional in living our values of dismantling colonistic practices through acknowledgement, through reaching out in sincerity, and in creating relationships. A land acknowledgement should open our hearts and hands that transforms into action. How can I be a part of restorative repair? How can I be in relationship to so many that are often unseen and unheard? What does this transformation look like for myself and my community so that patterns of oppression are clearly recognized and addressed? Anishinaabe writer and educator Hayden King writes, that a land acknowledgement needs to go beyond the recognition of where you stand. It must include a commitment to social and political action. So today I ask, can we weave together voice and action? I look forward to the day when land acknowledgements aren't needed. I look forward to a community that is fundamentally aware of the ripples of what privilege has done to people of color, and that this awareness evolved into systemic change. I look forward to a community where the land and the history of the original people is an obvious fact. May we be a part of the healing and hope. Until that time, let us open our hearts and examine how we can move from the spoken values that we cherish into accountability and action. Yom an ano achikmo ya koke. I wish you wellness and peace. Thank you.
If you have a chalice or a candle nearby, please feel free to light it, as the 5 Unitarian Universalist congregations in San Diego County light ours together this morning. We light a match, or we flick a switch, but we pass the flame along. The fire in our chalices is the same fire that warmed our ancestors in the cold, the same light that helped them see the way to truth, the same inspiration that encouraged them to work for justice even when hope felt distant. The light in each of our chalices is but a small part of a greater flame, one that exists throughout space and throughout time. A flame that inspires and ignites. A flame that shows us the power of our community when we join together. We light a match, or we flick a switch, and we pass the flame along.
Buenos dias. Bienvenidos a nuestro servicio virtual. Good morning. Welcome to our virtual worship service. I am the Reverend Joe Green, the settled minister at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of San Dieguito. I am so grateful to be with you all this morning in this unique service. This morning has brought us a unique opportunity to worship together as a larger community of Unitarian Universalists in San Diego County. During this anxiety-ridden year, community worship has given me a bit of solace, some time to feel the calm of being with other like-minded souls, a time to regroup and gather my thoughts, a time for respite, some peace. We gather here this morning for just that purpose. We also gather to gain strength in each other, to fight that good fight we feel is needed, to feed each other with the love and principles of Unitarian Universalism. When I lived in New Jersey, Cory Booker was one of my senators. He said, "Stay faithful in things large and taking on the world, but stay faithful in those things small, because remember, it's the small things, the size of a mustard seed, that ultimately moves mountains." We are the mustard seed right now, and if ever there was a call to move a mountain, it is now. We are being called to live out our principles as we have never been called before. Let us begin to move a mountain. May it be so. Blessed be.
Though days be dark with storms and burdens troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. When sorrow heals my soul and burdens make me strong, when troubles wait at every turn, I know I can go on. And though the journey is long, the destination is near. When hope awaits at every turn, I know we will go on.
Hi, this is Reverend Tania Marquez from the First UU Church of San Diego, and today I'm going to tell you a story about a small drop of water with a big dream. Maybe you have big dreams too and can relate to this story. Higgins, A Drop with a Dream by Christopher Buys. Once upon a time there was a drop of water named Higgins. Higgins was no ordinary drop of water. He was a drop with a dream. Higgins lived in a valley where it had not drained in a very long time. So all the lovely green grass was turning brown, all the beautiful flowers were wilting, and all the trees were starting to droop. Higgins had a dream that one day the valley would be beautiful again. But what could he do? After all, he was only a drop of water. One day, Higgins decided to travel and tell others about his dream. All the other drops listened very politely, but no one believed that his dream would come true. "Higgins," said one, "get your head out of the clouds. You can't spend your whole life dreaming." Higgins decided that he had to do something to make his dream come true. So he began to think and think and think. One day, as he was walking by a rusty old bucket, he got an idea. If enough of us drops of water got together in this bucket, Higgins thought, there would be enough water to sprinkle on a few flowers to help them grow and become beautiful again. Eagerly, Higgins told everyone his great idea, but everyone thought he was being foolish. "That Higgins is nothing but a dreamer," they said. Higgins decided that he had to do something to convince the others that he was right. So he said to them, "I don't know about you, but I'm getting into the bucket. I hope some of you will join me. Then there might be enough water to help at least some flowers grow beautiful again." So Higgins ran as hard as he could, hopped way up in the air, and landed with a kerplunk in the bottom of the bucket. And there he sat, just a drop in the bucket. For a long time, Higgins was very lonely. It seemed like no one else was going to join him. But after a while, some of the other drops could see that the grass was dying and the flowers were wilting and the trees were drooping. They all agreed that something must be done. Suddenly, one drop shouted, "I'm going into the bucket with Higgins!" And he leaped through the air and landed clunk in the bucket. Then two other drops yelled, "Wait for us!" And they hopped through the air and landed in the bucket. Then 10 drops jumped through the air into the bucket, then 30, then 50, and then hundreds of drops came from all around just to hop into the bucket. So the bucket was completely full of water. But there were still more drops that wanted to join, so they found another bucket and hopped in, and before long there were 2 buckets of water, then 3, then 4, then 10, and then hundreds, and then thousands of buckets of water. Along came a powerful breeze that blew over all the buckets, and all the water flowed together to make a mighty stream. Everywhere the water flowed, the grass turned green again, and the flowers bloomed, and the trees stood tall and straight once more. All this happened because Higgins had a dream, and his dream came true. Because he knew that although he was just a drop in the bucket, enough drops in the bucket make a bucket full. And when there are enough buckets with the wind behind them, then justice will roll down like waters and righteousness like a mighty stream. The end.
Let us take a moment now in a spirit of prayer and meditation. After the spoken words, there will be a time of silence for our individual thoughts. Spirit of life, Spirit of love, we have come together here to join our voices. We have come together here to share our hopes and to express our fears. We have come together here despite the fearful pace of events in the world. For years, we have seen or experienced injustice upon injustice, and now they come ever faster, and now our souls cry out for change. We each have our personal joys and sorrows as well. Joy for weddings and graduations and births of all kinds, mixed with regret that we sometimes cannot be there. Joy for the beauty of life on this earth and for the comfort of friends. But fear as well. Fear for the futures of ourselves, our families, our friends. Illness that comes unexpectedly. Jobs that have disappeared. Spirit of life, we ask that you see us as we are, that you stay close to us in our lives. And yet, we come together here with all of our lives, our joys and sorrows and hopes and fears. We come together here because we recognize a deeper truth. Together, we are stronger. Together, we can change the world. And the deepest truth of all, we are supported by love that is stronger than we know. Please join me in a moment of silent reflection. Amen, and blessed be.
Hey, Kathleen, how are you?
Hey, good to see you, Beth. Glad for this time.
Yeah, I'm so grateful for our time together, that we could come together. You and I could come together for a conversation. That's part of our cluster-wide worship, our time together. The connections between us all are so very, very meaningful. So I'm grateful to you and our colleagues for making this happen, the first of others that will happen as we are grappling at this time with, with big questions. And we thought about faithful to love, living our UU values.
Yeah.
What does faithful mean to you?
Well, I think that faithful has a lot of different meanings. But for me, faithfulness means integrity, that my words and my actions are in alignment. And faithful also means that when I'm not in alignment, I come back to it. You know, for me, Rumi's poem about come yet again come, and we sing that song, but we don't often sing or acknowledge that we can break our vows, we can mess up, we can
1,000 times.
1,000 times, but yet we're always invited to come back, to return again. And so being faithful, I think, is a practice. It's a spiritual practice, but it is also, it's a practice of returning to integrity. Because for me, integrity means wholeness. And when I think about love, it's wholeness. But I'm wondering what faithful means to you, Beth.
I love everything you had to say. Faithfulness for me means fidelity. And faithfulness does mean fidelity. It means to be true. I had a parishioner, Bond Perry, who used to quote the Universalist bond of union. And he would sing it. It was a song. And I would be true, he would sing. And that is what faithfulness, what comes up for me when I think about faithfulness. It also means to be true to my purpose, to what I am called to who I am called to be, and how I'm called to be in the world. It means holding fast to what is beautiful and good and true. You know, Kathleen, there's an aspect of faithfulness too that means to be courageous.
Yes.
To hold fast, to follow the call, and to be solid in it. You know, it's a core. I love what you said actually about it being a spiritual practice. You know, and especially when we consider what does it mean to be faithful to love. That sounds like a deep spiritual practice to me. What does being faithful to love mean to you?
Well, I think that love, and the big love, the ultimate, not sentimentality love, but the big love of beloved community, it is always calling us to connect with others, to get outside of ourself. So when Jan and I got married, one of my vows to her was that I would keep faith with her. And for me, that meant when times are hard, when I want to be right, that's not keeping faith. But keeping faith is about staying present, staying connected, and seeing us through and following love's call to be with one another in this endeavor of creating a beloved community within our own home, but also out in the larger world, not just our own home or our own congregation. And for me right now, I'm feeling so called to love and asking, what does love want from me in this time, in this election season? It would be so easy to vilify, to degrade other human beings, but love calls me to do something different. It calls me to be different in the midst of fear and panic. So it's with humility, because I think love is about relationship and repair, and a willingness to repair, and together move the beloved community forward. And so it's about centering compassion and answering, how would love respond in this moment? And with our democracy at stake, with the dehumanization that's happening, I can't stay silent, because love calls me to do. Yeah.
You know, I think it's interesting that we both came to a notion of love having to do with vows. many years ago and spoken out loud in my ordination, but years before as well. I took what's called the Bodhisattva vow from the book by Shantideva. And one piece of it, or the way it's kind of encapsulated, is for as long as space endures and for as long as living beings remain, may I too abide to dispel the misery of the world, the suffering of the world. Being faithful to love. Being faithful does mean to keep our vows, doesn't it? I'm just coming to that as we're having this conversation. And so when I think about that vow, that is my faithfulness to love. And you know what, Kathleen, it's a choice. Again, not the sentimentalized love. As I said, not that there's anything wrong with that. That's good and wonderful. But it's love as justice. It's to be faithful to love is to be faithful to that interconnectedness with all things, to care for the other. And when it happens, it invokes in us a sense of that we're embedded in love, that it's the most real thing. And it also means to be faithful to love means to embody it, to, as you said, look and follow where love will lead me. It means for me to ask, where are the lonely? Where are the lost? Where are the dispossessed? Where are the oppressed? It means heading there, going there, staying there, working with people. It means risking. It means risking maybe looking foolish. You know, being a fool for love means being, you remember the Faithful Fools? That ministry in San Francisco where people stayed in the streets with people without houses, and they were called the Faithful Fools. I want to be a fool for love. When people say that, you know, it can't be done, you know, I'm going to be faithful and look like a fool for choosing that. And, you know, we don't know, Kathleen, how things are going to turn out. You know, it's been, you know, it feels like we've been under siege for 4 years. And we know that there's been a failure of love since the beginning of the founding of this country.
That's right.
Grounded in genocide, drenched in blood. We have not been faithful to love. And now we're called to be faithful to love is Unitarian Universalists. We've got, I so resonate with the Universalist call to that deep love. And then, you know, how are we faithful to it? You know, what does it look like in our lives?
Well, you know, I think that universalism is our faith's response to the dehumanization, to the genocide. And every time we make the choice, as you said, to choose love, to that all-inclusiveness of universalism, every time we choose to address systemic oppression, to address racism, as many of us are doing in our congregations, every time we choose to address the inequities of our system, we are following love's call, because love is the collective liberation of us all, right? And doing that next right thing, that next thing that love puts up in front of us, when we go there, when we choose to be uncomfortable for the inclusivity of everyone, that's the work of love. And I want to be all about that. And so when I have privilege, I want to use that for love's agenda, right? And to move our democracy forward. And regardless of the outcome of November 3rd, our work is laid out for us because it will not change overnight, and no party is going to be the answer because we are the answer when we follow love.
And I'm thinking of General Assembly. I think it was last year, actually. I've kind of lost track of time, but maybe it was the year before. Who is the we?
Yeah.
And in this case, the we, I mean, is Unitarian Universalists collectively in all of our messiness and our, attempts at living in covenant and coming back again and again. When I think about being faithful to love, I'm thinking about Bell Hooks, the author, who said, the moment we choose love, we begin to move against domination, against oppression. The moment we choose to love, we begin to move forward, move toward freedom, to act in ways that liberate ourselves and others.
Yes.
And no one is free unless all are free.
That's
and
right.
that love's call for me is that I don't have a choice. And what I know is so many of our folks and activists in the community are tired and afraid and lonely and despairing even. And love, in order to be sustained, they're individual acts that we take, but we're also doing it collectively. And when we do it collectively, then we can breathe and we can take care of ourselves, to be faithful to love for ourselves by taking a break, thinking about the example of choirs that sustain a note. And that's because people stagger their breaths. And so there's a sustaining notion of love that is powerful for me. I come back to our second source that states we draw from the words and deeds of prophetic people, which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love.
Amen.
And I'm faithful to love because I know I'll be changed.
That's
I
right.
know that love transforms hearts, minds, lives. And again, like you said, there's no guarantee, and there's still going to be work for us to do.
Oh yeah.
I can't imagine anyone else I'd rather do this with than you and our congregations as we do this work. Like you said, you the vote, letter writing, the Poor People's Campaign. One of the things that we say in the Poor People's Campaign is everybody's got a right to live. And
That's right.
And that means everybody's got a right to love. And that's where, that's what love is calling us to do. And knowing too that we are not doing it alone. That, we're faithful to love, and love is faithful to us.
Amen. That's right.
As the song says, there's a love holding me. There's a love holding you. There's a love holding all that we love.
Yes. And I think that we can rest in that assurance that we can abide there as we do our work, as we make love public through acts of justice. We need each other, and we need to understand that we are all about love. Yeah.
Radical love, fierce compassion, and eyes wide open hope.
Amen, sister. Thank you.
Amen,
Thank you.
Jasmine. It was great to have this conversation with you.
And with you.
Thank you.
The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. The tide is rising, and so are we. This is where we are called. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. The task is mighty, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. The land is holy, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. The storm is raging, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. The sun is shining, and so are we. This is where we are called to be. This is where we are called to be.
Our collective offering this morning is being received in support of the Kumeyaay Diegueño Land Conservancy, or KDLC. Its mission is quoted to renew our ancestral ties to the ocean, the mountains, and the desert through protective land management, cooperative agreements, and educational programs. Thank you for your support of this important work. Nuestra ofrenda colectiva de esta semana se destinará a la conservación de la tierra Kumeyaay Diegueño, DKLC por sus siglas en inglés. Su misión, cito, es la de renovar nuestros lazos ancestrales con el océano, las montañas y el desierto a través de un programa de administración de protección a la tierra, acuerdos cooperativos y programas educativos. Gracias por su apoyo a este importante trabajo. To participate in our offering this morning, just text GIVE to 844-635-0025 or visit First UU's website at firstuusandiego.org. For either option, choose Generosity Offering. Para participar en nuestra ofrenda esta mañana, envíen la palabra GIVE en inglés al 844-635-0025 o visiten la página web de firstuusandiego.org. Para ambas opciones, elijan ofrenda de generosidad.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise. Listen to our cries through the pain and lies. Our people gonna rise. Our people gonna sing.
Our people gonna sing.
Our people gonna sing. In spite of everything, hear our freedom ring. Our people gonna sing. Our people gonna fight. Our people gonna fight for what we know is right. We march into the night. Our people gonna fight. Our people gonna breathe. Our people gonna breathe. Our people gonna breathe. Whatever you believe, we have the right to breathe. Our people gonna breathe. Our people gonna pray.
Our people gonna pray.
Our people gonna pray. Take our rights away. See you on election day. Our people gonna pray. Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise.
Our people gonna rise. Listen to our cries through the pain and lies. Our people gonna rise.
Our
People gonna rise. Our people gonna rise. Our people gonna rise. Our people gonna rise.
Again, the words of theologian Beverly Wildung Harrison. Radical love creates dangerous precedents and lofty expectations among human beings. Those touched by the power of such love tend to develop reluctance to accept anything less than mutuality and self-respect, anything less than human dignity, anything less than authentic relatedness. No matter the outcome of the election, our work remains the same: to be faithful to the transforming power of love, to be faithful to the actions that sustain and move love forward, to be faithful to the radical love that is justice, the radical love that is our interconnectedness, the radical love that dispels the suffering of the world. May each of us be touched by the power of that love. May each of us live all our days answering love's call. May it be so. Amen, and blessed be. Go in peace.